Today, we're going to talk about building distribution. If you want to run a successful online business, then you need to have a distribution channel. You need people that are paying attention to you and that are following you. So in today's video, we're going to talk about the 3 types of distribution, and we're also going to talk about how you can create a distribution network of your own. So first off, what does distribution even mean? It simply means, do you have an audience? Do you have people that are paying attention to you? If you do, then you have distribution. So like I said, there's 3 different types of distribution, and we're going to start with rented distribution. Rented means you have an audience that is owned by a platform that isn't you. It means you don't actually own your audience. Sure, you have a handful of people, or you have an audience of people that are paying attention to you, but it doesn't actually mean that that audience is yours. So a good example of this is any social media profile, is YouTube, is even something like Substack. I might have 13,000 followers on Twitter, but in reality, I don't own those followers. Twitter owns them. So it is a distribution channel because at any time I want, I can publish a tweet and I can send my ideas, my information, my knowledge, my promotions to my audience, to my distribution. But also at any given time, Twitter can change its algorithm. It can change its rules, and that will affect how I am able to communicate with my actual following. So although the distribution is real, it's rented. I'm basically leasing it from Twitter. I'm paying for the distribution with my own attention. It's a cyclical relationship that social media profiles have with their audience. A general rule of thumb is this: if it's free, then you are the product. So social media is free because social media is selling your attention to leverage advertising dollars. Depends who you ask. I think social media is a really great tool. However, as we're going to talk about in just a minute, what you want to do with social media is turn that rented distribution into owned distribution. So before we get there, we're going to talk about borrowed distribution. Borrowed basically means that somebody else is sending your information to their audience. So a really good example of borrowed distribution is newsletters. Let's say I write a blog post, I write an article, I have an article that's on my website, that's on timstodds.com. Somebody else is doing a weekly newsletter, and maybe they feature my article on their newsletter. Well, that is borrowed distribution. For a temporary moment, they or I am leveraging somebody else's audience to funnel that attention to me, to my content, to my ideas. So I don't own that person's audience either. That person's email list is their email list, but I'm temporarily borrowing their distribution channel to point that attention to whatever it is that I'm working on. So far we have rented distribution and we have borrowed distribution. Neither of these things we actually own, but the purpose is to use them to create owned distribution. What does this mean? There's only one real type of owned distribution, 1.5 if you want to get technical with it. You can say that you own your website because the content that is published on your website is owned by you. You created it, it's your intellectual property. That gets a little bit fuzzy because most of the time, the way to generate traffic to a website is through search engine optimization. And of course, that is rented distribution. We don't own Google. We are renting Google space to send traffic to our website. So although the content itself is owned by you, the mechanism of which the people get to your website isn't. So a website is a little bit of a fuzzy area, but the aspect of your distribution that you absolutely own and that you will always own is your email list. So the trick is to use rented distribution, which is basically social media, borrowed distribution, which is basically other people's audiences, and funnel that traffic to your email list. You will always have a direct relationship with the people that sign up for your email list. You can speak directly to them without a third-party intermediary in the way. You can send a newsletter to them, and you're sending it directly to them. There's nobody in between. You can email them directly. You can send them a sales pitch. You can send them your new product that you're trying to sell. Whatever it is that you want to communicate with them, you can do it at any time at your own will with the freedom to say what you want to say. And so if you have rented distribution and you have borrowed distribution, that's great. But only having those things is very, very dangerous because you don't have control of it. So what you want to do is take those two channels, funnel them to your own distribution, and build an email list. Over time, if you have an email list, then you will have a digital asset that is worth, it's indescribable how much value you can get from a very well-received, high open rate email list. You can sell your products, you can sell your services, you can sell advertising on a newsletter, you can do whatever you want, but you can't do that if you never actually own it. So to summarize, use rented distribution and use borrowed distribution and funnel that attention to make it owned. And owned distribution basically means having an email list. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any more questions, please leave your question in the comment. Please like and subscribe is the best thing you can do to support my channel. Really appreciate you guys. I'll talk to you next week.